Hi everybody, this is Matt. Thanks for watching and welcome back. You know, one of the greatest things for me being involved in the shooting sports, the gun culture, the gun community, whatever it is that you want to call it, is the ability to teach, to be able to share history and to provide like an oral tradition of firearms and their history and their development, usage, so on and so forth. And one of those times happened recently with my youngest daughter, Stephanie. And it was a special moment for the two of us, and I wanted to share it with you, the viewers, because this is the perfect example of how good things can happen when, you know, you're spending time with family and they're learning something about your passions. Because my daughter Stephanie is not really into firearms. Now, I've taught her how to shoot, and she can shoot a .22 pistol, no problem. She's extremely accurate with it, but it's not really her thing. Archery is her thing, and I'm perfectly okay with that, but I'm not going to force my kids to love and enjoy something that is really my passion. Well, we went on a special field trip, took her to a city that she'd never been before, took her to a gun shop that she'd never been in before, and this place had been open for at least 40 years, maybe even 50. I knew that she'd love the town because of the architecture involved, but I also had a little hunch that she'd like the gun shop. So the moment that we walk in the front door, that's when the light bulb comes on. That's when you get the aha moment, because Stephanie got excited. She was overwhelmed by the scents, the smells coming from the old gun shop. And you people, most of you know what I'm talking about. But she was also overwhelmed by the history that was on the walls of the place. They had displays up all across the gun shop. And she turned and she looked at one gun that was up there, and it was a long gun, and she's like, "Dad, what is that?" And I'm like, Prussian musket, probably, looks like Potsdam. I'm saying 200-300 years old. What? How do you know that? I know firearms. Well, what about that one? Okay, hon, that's a pre-Civil War musket, probably came out of the South because you can tell by the markings on it. What's that? That's a 1903 Springfield. What's that? That's a British Lee Enfield. So on and so forth. And we made several laps around the place, and the cool thing was is the employees, they could see what was happening. And I'm picking up shotguns and rifles, and I'm giving her the backstory on it, and she thought that it was really cool. And then we get to one thing in particular, and I'm like, I want to show this to you because this is important. Both of your grandfathers carried this in World War II. And what that was, this right here. Now, for those of you that don't know what this is an M1 Garand. This is a battle rifle that General George S. Patton once called the greatest battle implement ever invented. It fires a round that is a .30 caliber round. It's .30-06. Generally, back in the time, for those of you that want to know, it was 150 grain ball ammunition. You really wouldn't want to put modern ammo through this. Try to stick with like 150 grain, maybe 168 grain top. But this is it. I handed this to my daughter Stephanie, and her eyes bugged out, and she's like, "Dad, this is heavy." I'm like, "Yes, honey, it is. It weighs at least 10 pounds, maybe 11. And by the time that it was loaded and you had a bayonet on the end, probably closer to 12 pounds. I said, just remember, your grandfathers carried this day in, day out. They had it on a sling, and it wasn't just this. It was a bandolier with all their ammo and everything. She's like, how could they carry it? And I'm like, they were strong. They were conditioned. They were physically fit. That's how they could carry this. And so that really became one of those aha moments. And I was very glad, I'm extremely happy that I was able to share that with my daughter. So there you have it on that particular story. But let's just talk for a moment about the M1 Garand, because M1s that have any kind of World War II provenance where we know that they were built and they served in World War II, or they saw service in Korea, as an example, they're becoming more and more rare with every passing day. So let's just talk about it and why you might want to own one, because it's a piece of history that once that piece of history is in somebody else's hands, chances of you getting it without having to pay an exorbitant price tag, pretty doggone slim. So, like I said, this is an M1 Garand. This has a peep sight back here, and you have a bladed notch right there on the front. No scope, shot with iron sights, which was something else that I talked to my daughter about. I said, your grandfathers were marksmen. They were marksmen. That's why they could shoot this and shoot it effectively. Now on this one, this was manufactured by Springfield. The born on date was October of 1942. And one thing about an M1 Garand, if you look here, a lot of the World War II models have this little, what I call lanyard loop back here at the rear of the trigger guard. And that right there shows me that it's World War II, in addition to the serial number on the top and everything else. Now, the safety is right here. So you take the safety off by doing that. An M1, when it fires, the proper sound that you should hear coming from it, as far as a firing pin goes, is like this. Nice and loud. These are not things that you are supposed to be gentle with whatsoever. And for you viewers that know what the ping sound happens to be, I went ahead and I preloaded a clip, an empty clip in here. And so let's just see if you can hear that sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this. That's what you hear when it gets empty and it locks back. When it locks back, this is what you're looking at. So that's the internals on this particular gun. Designed to work in any kind of condition, and I'm being careful here because I don't want a case of what they call Garand thumb, which means that this bolt comes forward and it catches your thumb and your thumb then bleeds. Very fine shooting gun, most likely a walnut stock that I'm looking at. Seeing a lot of stainless steel. I know that the trigger assembly is a Winchester trigger assembly. So overall, a very fine piece of history. Now you might say, how can I own one? Well, there are still some available through the CMP, the Civilian Marksmanship Program. But getting one of these through the CMP is becoming harder and harder because they've pretty much gone through about anything possible to rebuild them. So how would you go about getting one? You could go to a gun shop. You could buy something like this. But if you want to get it through the CMP, go to the CMP's website, because that was actually something that got set up by the government to train civilians how to be marksmen. And the unique thing about it is, well, for starters, let me get back into some of the little bit of legal mumbo jumbo. You need to belong to a club, like, you know, an Isaac Walton League or some kind of a shooting organization, a shooting club that has an affiliation with the CMP in order to purchase one from them. You fill out the paperwork. They're going to do a background check on you. Once they have done that, and you get notification that you've passed your next check, then you can go ahead and you can order one from them. And you know what that's weird about this? They actually will ship it to your door. How cool is that? But anyway, the supply on these things are dwindling. And if you want to own a piece of history, consider something like that. Is this a match grade rifle today? No. Why do I own it? I own it because I love historical guns. I really do. And maybe it's something for you to consider. So anyway, that's it. That's my story. That's me sharing a part of my life that I had with my daughter, with you, the viewers. And I thank you for taking your time if you've been able to stay through the video this long. So as always, thanks for watching. And until next time, everybody, have a good one. And of course, be safe out there.